like Uzad Salama, where they go and teach and train them about sexual reproductive health. But now the school are closed, the college, the school are closed. So the young people are not getting access to this kind of services. But also for out of school, we usually have for non-government organizations together with the government, they are providing out of school programs. They are doing out of school programs. But currently, there is a restrictions of doing this kind of interventions, and we need to think about how we're gonna come with the alternative way to start providing this kind of services in our communities. So, what I would suggest is an advocacy or a way forward to do to ensure that at the end of the day, young people in your communities they get this kind of services in a smooth way, whereby no one should be left behind and get the services. For example, we need to think about the data of the problem young people are experiencing as since COVID-19 has started in this country, has come to these countries. So we need to find the data. We need to do assessment to get the feedback, like what we are doing here, to get the information. Then this kind of information will help us to come with suggestions or with programs on the way how we can do it. But at the same time, uh, we need to think about how can we come with innovative way to address issues related to sex and relationship education programs, which initially were provided in school. But now, because young people are in community, at home, they have restricted, they're having restricted movement. So how can we do to make sure that they're getting this kind of information? So this is another area which we need to think about it. Peer health education, the conventional way we know how we are doing this kind of programs, but now the peer education intervention cannot be done as we used to do formal. So we need to think about how can we do it. But at the same time, we need to think about continuing providing youth-friendly services such as contraceptive and other related services. Initially, we see the way they were getting it, the outlets, the way it was given, but now with COVID-19 is a big challenge. So as young people, we need to come with the suggestions to tell the government and to tell other key actors on innovative way we can do to make sure that we approximate this kind of services to reach everyone in the community, to reach every young people who in need with this kind of services. For example, to come with outreach, if it's possible, to come with outreach programs, but at the same time to come with social media or media programs, which you can just go there and ask for this kind of information, and then you can get that kind of information at the end of the day. So those are the areas we need to keep into consideration to make sure that at the end of the day, this kind of services are provided in our community. To be honest, existence of COVID-19 in our communities have compounded the situation or the challenges which young people have been experiencing. For example, we should expect more of cases of teenage pregnancies happening in the communities. So what role can we play as young people in our communities to ensure that we protect these young people in the community, and at the same time, for those who have contracted pregnancies, we provide them with services, appropriate services, and holding accountable the impunitors who contributed to this kind of problem. But at the same time, we are seeing more of possibility of more of infections to happen for young people, especially during this era of COVID-19, because they have nowhere, they have no the networks where they can go and ask for the support or they can ask for getting for the information. So this is another area, is a gray area which we need to think about. How can we come with innovative way of providing the information and make sure that is infiltrated to all levels of communities where we are living, and young people are getting this kind of information. And when they have this kind of problem, or they have any kind of problems they're experiencing, they know where to go. For example, it's a high time now for young people, like in this United Nations and other youth in this country, to advocate for existence of GBV directory, service directory, which would be a friendly, which should everyone knows when they experience any kind of problem, they just go there. GBV and SRH, the electoral, we need to have that one. So that whenever you have any problem, you can just go there, you can ask them the question, you can ask for the services which you need, and you can get the services, you can get the referral at the end of the day. So these are the areas which we need also to keep into consideration. But the other way, other means which young people they need to keep into consideration and do more of advocacy. For example, in our country, we have the National Plan of Actions for Prevention of Gender-Based Violence against Women and Children. And in every ward, we have these Women and Children Protection Committees. But are they operational? So it's a high time now to hold those committees accountable, to start working and to start making sure that every young people in that locality is getting the services. For example, if this prevention committee could be operational, they could make sure that uh, all young people in a particular ward, because they have this called household registers for every ward, which is telling the head who is the head of the family, the number of people in his family, and what kind of service they need and things like that. So that is the register they have. So we can include the information, or we can ask it, we can hold the accountable this protection committee to make sure that in all households, in every ward, they have the number of young people who are existing in those families, for example, with their status, whether they're in school or out of school, whether they are pregnant or not non-pregnant, or whether they're having this kind of challenge. At the end of the day, if we have this database, which will provide this kind of information, knowing the number of young people we have in our communities, it will help a lot. So as part one of my presentation, let me stop here and look forward for more discussion, and if there will be a questions to respond later. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doctor, for your incredible contribution. I'm sure we as youth, we have taken note of all the incredible contributions that you've shared with us on number of ways as how we can better the advancement of services as well as information on sexual reproductive health and rights and gender, starting from household registrations, starting from advocating for existence, they use media programs and interventions. Now, I hope that, my dear participants, you're sending your questions on the chat box so that after we end with our last speaker, we can read your questions to our speakers. Now, I would like us to take a few minutes to refresh and watch this video, which is a video of Tanzania International Model United Nations of last year, on which they were discussing on the advocacy of sexual reproductive health and rights and gender-based violence. And let's see how the process went.
Hello, my name is Pharmacist Benedict Aweru, and I am live at the Tanzania International Model UN Conference in Morocco. I'm playing the role as the chairperson of Caucus 1 in this conference, and that caucus is on the thematic area of youth role in advocating for sexual reproductive health. I've learned so much so far from this conference, and I think every youth should thrive to attend any of these conferences in any of the countries you find yourself. Young people, what are you doing with yourself? It is important that you get useful information to enable you take the spaces and the positions that you ought to take. Utilize your strength. Put all of this to good use, get information, and know how to impact the world around you.
I'm going to take Swahili classes now. I can say Sauti, Karibu Sana, Mambo.
Wasn't that refreshing? Now that is what happens on Timon. That is what happened during Timon last year. And hopefully once the situations becomes better, we are going to have a similar experience in the Timon 2020 this year. A very important message from one of our participants from Nigeria. Her name is Miss Benedicta Uweru. She says, young people, what are you doing with your life? How do you make sure that you get information and share and become a bridge to a positive change in your communities? And this is very important, that we need to assure ourselves that we are doing something with our lives, not only for ourselves, but for others too. Now, on that note, before I welcome my third and last speaker, I would like us to have another poll. And let us see as well what is our perception or the youth perception concerning the following topic. Can we please have the second poll? Now, this question says, COVID-19 has reduced sexual assaults on children since they are at home most of the time. Do you agree or do you disagree? Do you think the existence of COVID-19 has reduced sexual assaults on children as they are at home most of the times? Is it yes or no? Cast your vote and we are soon going to see the results. Okay, as you are continuing to cast your votes, kindly agree or disagree and submit so that we can see what are our perception, particularly on the safety of children as they are at home during this period of pandemic. What do we think? Has the pandemic enhanced the safety and protection of children as they are most at home, or has it made the situation worse? Do you agree or disagree? Kindly cast your vote and submit it. Now, let's see the results. The question says COVID-19 has reduced sexual assaults on children since they are at home most of the time. 19% of us do agree that COVID-19 has reduced sexual assault, but 81% of us disagree. They say that COVID-19 has not reduced sexual assaults on children, rather it has accelerated sexual assault. Well, thank you very much. And on that note, I would like to welcome my third speaker. His name is Mr. Godwin Mongi. He is a man engagement representative from CDF, and they are dealing with promoting and reinforcing children's rights, especially addressing FGM, teenage pregnancy, and child marriages. Mr. Mongi, kindly welcome and let us know what has COVID-19 brought as a challenge, most especially on advocating for safety of children and what can be done. Welcome.
Thank you. Do I have to turn my video on? So thank you so much. If I'm with you correctly, you want also to touch on how COVID-19 has really contributed to the escalation of acts of violence against children, and how as many engaged Tanzania have been able to do something about it. But mostly I'm going to start with generally talking about what Men Engage is all about and how we have been dealing with this situation to promote men and boys engagement in having access to sexual reproductive health education information, and at the same time try to really address the issues of GBV. So first of all, thank you for this opportunity, and thank you everyone for tuning in. I'm going to try to be as brief as possible to leave a room for questions, and feel free to ask for more elaboration on any point that you feel is necessary. So first of all, as Men Engage Tanzania is a network of a number of organizations that, apart from other things they're doing, they're trying to make sure that they promote men and boys engagement into addressing violence against children and women. And lack of access to social reproductive health information for girls and issues of GBV, they definitely falls under this category of violence against women and children. And we are trying to do this in line with the National Plan of Action to End Violence Against Women and Children. Now, as myself, we have a different task force within it, different organizations working together, and I'm heading on the role of advocacy representing Men Engage Tanzania at the level of Africa on the issues of advocacy. But I'm going to be sharing with you what members are doing, coordinated by the Secretariat. So one of the issues we're doing is try to really engage boys through different clubs that members have in different schools. Case point is like the organization that I work with called Bright Jamii Initiative, where it centers on promoting comprehensive child protection. In these clubs, we are actually also training boys to really understand about the sexual reproductive health, to see how can they really support girls in this when they're in that period when they're in school and so forth. How can they really interact and engage with them? The jokes they should be able to do. So girls actually were able to write down some of the challenges they're facing and how they are able to adjust staying with boys in schools or going to classes, and the challenges they are facing with the teachers and everything. So engaging boys and teachers to get to understand how to create a better environment for them to be able to participate in their studies when they are in their periods. Another area we do is the engagement of religious leaders and traditional leaders in addressing misinterpretation of scriptures, and in return, and we have been able to assist them to develop sermons guide and the other guidelines that really, as national religious leaders, to be able to encourage other religious leaders at the local level to be able to use the same scriptures they're using to be able to address social cultural norms that actually contribute to limitation to access of these sexual reproductive health information, and at the same time contribute to GBV. On another point we are doing is that to try to engage men and boys at the grassroots. And I'm sure maybe if not most, some of you have heard about the program Kijiwe cha Kahawa. One of our members, Tiba, is piloting or championing that program at the grassroots, where we normally men and boys gather together and be able to discuss about these things. And our Secretariat is doing their best to try to document this, the learning from different experiences from the members, and try really to mobilize resources, capacity building, ensuring some supporters, make sure that members are able to do what they do best. With all that, with that being said, within the current context, where especially from around February, March coming up, when the COVID-19 really hit Tanzania, and when the state of pandemic was announced by the government, we faced a number of challenges in keep on doing what we're doing. And one of them being, since many Tanzania works across the country, the issue of technological literacy, or lack of access and devices to these tools that will allow youth in the different remote areas in the villages to be able to access the information, participate in our movement as we used to do before. That became a real challenge, because most of the youth still, a number of, not most, I'm saying a good number of youth in the villages still, even if they have smartphones, with the economic impact of COVID-19 in their families, lack of restriction in movement has really been, they have not been able to really have enough financial support, make sure that they have internet bundles, access, and participate in online platforms. Now that is even worse for girls, especially when I say for girls, because girl youth, with our this oppressing, with the existence of oppressive social cultural norms, especially in the rural areas. I mean, for a girl to own a smartphone is a big challenge by itself. So how do we reach them and try to engage with them with the limitation of movements and stuff? And since they're at home, not at school, they become the one doing almost everything at home in their home settings. So having access to them has been a great challenge in this area. So and so as really enhancing access for them to be able to access the information and the things they need. Members of Men Engage also have been acting or playing an intermediary role between youth, teachers, and their parents in making sure that they have access to the sexual reproductive health information. They have things they need, like menstrual hygiene tools they may need, and all those kind of things. Because of the prevailing norms, girls are not freely able to talk about these things with their teachers. And sometimes they go through a lot of challenges. And it was, to my surprise, when we did a small study with a number of schools, most of our youth, especially girls, they get the information from either the housemates, their friends, a big sister they know on the streets. But I would say maybe less than 10% they actually talk to their parents about these issues. So many engaged members have been trying to play that intermediary role, talking to the teachers, explaining to them and the parents to get more engaged, more involved, and try to understand what girls are going through. And with schools being shut down, that now is next to impossible, but trying to explore other means to be able to do and reach out to them. So that has also really pushed back the youth who have been on the forefront, try to really educate other youth and have hosting discussion through clubs in their own schools and getting to discuss about this, engaging teachers and parents through arts and other forms of engagement. Another area I would like to share is about the fact that at least now things are a bit changing, but the fact that when from March, April, May, there was a huge shift of focus to addressing curative aspect of COVID-19, not necessarily the social aspect of it. And that has left a huge, alongside with the resource reallocation to addressing the impact of COVID-19, especially on curative measures or curative aspect of it. It has left huge, I'll say, debt, like there was no much focus on the social impact of it. So that has been also another challenge that we have been facing in trying to address or keep on enhancing access to these issues. Another area I think is the fact that COVID-19 has also affected most families economically. A lot of industries, especially when I'm trying to focus more on the rural and low-income kind of families that are normally doing either non-formal work or working as part-time in industries that takes on, just so you know, 51% of people working in industries are women. And a good percent of them are also youth. So when it comes to issues of calamities, natural disasters like this, when they try to cut down people, they use a rule that maybe some of you are aware about called LIFO, last in, first out. So most of the youth are laid out. So with the economic difficulties they're facing, accessing information, using technologies becomes also a problem. To be able to actually get their needs when it comes to sexual reproductive issues, it's also a challenge. Things like the pads and all other issues they may need, especially those who are independent and staying on their own. Some of those women who have also children that used to depend on them, they can no longer have that same access. They cannot access technology and all that. So they were kind of in the dark, suffering in silence. And all the initiatives that targeting to empower youth and even economically to be able to rise again and do things of their own, that also also stopped. So even the entrepreneurship activities, income generating projects that really targeted youth to be able to come out on their own, to be able to be independent. And we also know the relationship between economic empowerment and GBV. You know, the more girls and women have access to resources, the more, especially the youth girls, and they'll be able to become independent, be able to stay on their own. They lower the risks of them being exposed to GBV. And this is why the National Plan of Action, the first thematic area, is about household economic strengthening, because there are a number of researches that were done to establish the fact that with economic strengthening of youth, you really lower the chances of them experiencing or being exposed to GBV. Now, that situation is even worse when we talk about the villages. So with that being said, as many engaged Tanzania and through our partners, even as the organization that I'm coming from, Bright Jamii Initiatives, we are trying to explore different means and methodology to be able to reach out and keep on empowering and facilitating youth movement to advocating for social productive health, education and access and information to information and all that, and also against GBV. But as you're trying to explore these things, you also keep in mind the issues of online platforms, of which still, even though the data shows 29, up to 2019, 29 million of Tanzanians regularly accessing social platforms or World Wide Web, or at least they use internet, not necessarily big chunk of those people that do that regular and every day, or they are able to engage in this platform. They have literacy enough to be able to do that. So it's still a challenge that we are trying to explore how we can make that even working better. We have also been trying to explore the issues of short films and songs. And as you might have seen, a number of songs recently have been released on the issues of COVID-19 to provide awareness and sort. But still, also, we are facing a challenge that if you really want to have value or evaluate the impact of the short film, you need to bring people together to watch it, explore, get their opinions and stuff. Maybe a song can just go as a song and people try to use that as well. But to be able to measure the impact of it also, you need to bring people together, which has also been a challenge. With that being said, and some people have also been trying to use the PA systems, going around the streets, using the PA and providing information, IEC materials, but generally, the lack of back and forth conversation, the lack of getting feedback from the people or responsible you're talking to, it's still a big challenge to measure the impact of your intervention. And without them being engaging, the learning is not as the same. So these are all challenges that we're trying to explore and how we can make the best use of. On the other hand, we are trying now to accept the fact that according to the government, we are in the states where COVID-19 is being contained. The life is going back to normal. And then we have also a number of development partners looking to the global context that they say, okay, we will not support any interventions that will allow to bring people together. Or the government says this, but we as donors do not want it to. We cannot let you do that. So how do we as men engage and then navigate through that? How do we create dialogues with the donors and CSOs to try to come up with the best way to go about these issues? How do we really adjust to going back to normal with the precautions that are necessary to be taken to make sure that we get to engage and empower and facilitate youth to be able to go out there to keep doing what they're doing best in this area? So we're trying as much as you can to make sure that boys and men are engaged. Working with the religious leaders, traditional leaders has been really helpful to really transform these social cultural norms and try to really make boys and men feel confident to engage and support girls. But at the same time, I think it's high time we realize that the life is coming back to normal. Corona is here to stay. It will take a long time to go away. We're talking about years. We need to think about the best ways as youth to navigate through this. How do we come up with the best ways to engage as many people as we can? Keep on promoting youth engagement and make sure, even if we're going to have to bring the youth together, how do we keep on doing that and make sure that we take the necessary precautions? Now, with that being said, precautions, the kind of precautions you're talking right now, may not necessarily being just washing hands, using sanitizer, wearing masks, but these precautions should be part and parcel of life. You should be able to adapt it as a culture, that now this is the way of life, about hygienic, our diet, and necessary personal protection gear that we may need to live with to be able to keep on doing our work. So the challenge ahead of us is how we adjust to this situation and engaging youth even more. Thank you.
All right, that was Mr. Mongi from Many Engagement Platform Bright Yami. Thank you very much for your contribution. Now, I would like to tell my dear participants that if you have a question, there is an option for you to either write your question on the chat box, or you can raise your hand and have an opportunity to ask the question yourself. There is an option Down on your right, there is more, and then there is raise hand. If you raise a hand, the host will allow you to ask the question yourself. Or you can write the question on the chat box and we'll be delighted to ask the question for you. Now, let's have one poll again so that we can continue to see what is our perception. This time, we are going to see what is the perception of youth on gender-based violence. And here is our third poll. The question says, women are more affected with GBV acts compared to men. Do you agree or disagree? Do you agree that women are more affected with GBV acts or do you disagree? Cast your votes and then submit it. I do repeat and encourage you to ask questions as we are now headed for the question and answers session to our speakers. So if you have a question, you can raise a hand so that you can be able to ask it yourself or on the chat box. And now the results for our polls, please. The question says women are more affected with GBV acts compared to men, and 73% of us agree that women faces more GBV acts compared to men, and only 27% disagree. Thank you. Okay, let us go to the question and answers session. There is a question here from Upendo Chitinika. This question is directed to Dr. Katanta. I hope he's still with us. The question says, how far have you addressed stigma when dealing with sexual reproductive health and rights for young people? As you've notified us as one of the challenges facing provision of services and information of sexual reproductive health and rights to young people is stigma that they face from the service providers. Now, Dr. Katanta, in your space and in your position, how far have you addressed stigma when dealing with sexual reproductive health and rights for young people?
Yeah, so this is a big problem in our country and in most of the communities, because one of the reasons, as I mentioned previous, that young people are not accessing the services because of stigma discriminations. And most of the time is a result of social norms and socialization process. So in our programming, for example, at In Gender Health, we are involving young people into the program, and our program are designed to work in the community, but at the same time at the health facilities, so that we provide the entry point at the end of the day. For example, in every health facility, there is a need of having health facility governing committee. And in the composition of the health facility governing committee, there is a need of representations of young people. We need to have young people representations, a boy and a girl, a male and a female. But at the same time, as we are speaking now, we need also to do more advocacy. We need also representations of people with disabilities, people living with disabilities in the group. So in this kind of formation of health facility governing committees, what we do, we talk with the members of health facility governing committee, and we conduct something called health facility walk, where it's called site walks, where we identify potential people in the community. We tell them what is happening in the community. For example, we mentioned about the 10 top diseases which are happening, but one of the agenda which is addressed is about the provision of youth, adolescents, youth and friendly services. So, and sharing the status, where in many times you'll find that the utilization of the service, especially for young people, is low. So that's where we use that entry point to start talking about it, that the main problem here is the stigma. And one of the areas where we get the stigma is from the service providers ourselves, as we provide healthcare services. but from the community as well, because many times you see when they see young people going to, for example, the family planning clinic, they start asking, you a young person, why are you going there? Maybe when they go to STD, sexual transmitted infection clinics, they will start asking, why are you going there? Does it mean you have started doing sex? So we organize some of interventions in the community to break the silence and to make sure that now there is a communication. We elicit the communication. We foster starting of the communication between the community members, that means the parents and young peoples. And that's why you'll find we identify in the communities peoples whom we mentioned, we call them paraprofessionals, the ones who are champions, the ones who can speak about young people. They can give opinions on issues related to young people. They can add ideas. For example, when there's any decision is being done to make sure that young people and people with disability are also included. So that's what we do. So for the facility at the same time, we have young people who have been trained as a champion. For example, in one of the projects which we are doing in southern part of this country of Tanzania, whereby we have identified young people who are champions. They have been trained. Mr. Mongi have been talking about the male involvement component. So we as in gender health, we have a blend of many as partner approach. So we train them on many as partner approach because we know one of the barrier of accessing the service is underutilization by men. The low involvement of men in our communities. So these champions, young people, they are trained in this concept. They go in the community, they work with the community members, especially the community health workers, to identify potential young people and champions in the community to go and start accessing the services. So
Thank you.
that's how we do at the end of the day. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Doctor. That was amazing. Now we have another participant. His name is Rajab Mpilipili. He raised a hand to ask a question. Rajab, if you're with us, kindly join the video and ask your question.
Okay, thank you. Hopefully I'm heard. Hello? Hello? Am I heard?
Just proceed, we can get you.
Okay, good. As I have been introduced, I'm Said Rajab Mpilipili, and I am a non-sighted also, but I would like to ask two questions. One, I have heard about the presentation of the three speakers, and they were too general on what youth are facing towards the fighting against COVID-19 in the relation to the well-being of the youth and their networks and advocacy issues. But how do you engage persons living with disabilities, especially young ones, both men and women? Because when you find the way they are in their position, they are facing double challenges because of the intersectionality. And when I say that, I mean that I do believe you understand me. That is one. But two, to Dr. Katanta, and I have wrote such question, but I would like to repeat it. What is missing in the society when it comes to the access and utilization of contraceptives so that young people can have really and well sexual reproductive health? What is missing? Is it about supplying? Is it about demand? Or is it about what? That is the two questions I would like to ask. Thank you for such chance. I'm glad.
All right. Thank you very much, Rajab, for your question. I believe you were talking about social inclusion, particularly of people living with disabilities. And we have with us Dr. Katanta, who is an expert on social inclusion. So Doctor, if you would please answer the questions from Rajab.
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Rajab Mpilipili from the Hub Foundation. I know you are working with it's an organization for young people with disability. It's great. So to start with the first questions. Sorry. Hello.
We can hear you. You can continue. Hello.
Oh yeah, thank you. I was muted. So to start with the first questions. For example, for in gender health and other related organizations, we do provide services which are targeting people with disability. For example, for us, we have something called the standard package for gender, youth, and social inclusions. Which is like a marker which is guiding us in our programming and in our provision of our services in working with the government. And this the standard package we do use to train the health service providers who are providing services to different community members who are coming to access the services or who are reaching them through the outreach program. So in this standard package, one of the standard package is disability, providing services to people with disability, looking into the infrastructures, looking into the attitude of the service providers, but at the same time, trying to address the barriers which people with disability in their categories they do face when they want to access the services at the end of the day to address them. So this standard package has a specific set of questions and guidance which the service providers will be trained, and we really ask that you have to have that gender lens whenever you are providing a service in a holistic approach. You need to keep consideration for people with disability. You need to give special understanding or special consideration for young people whenever they come to access the services, but also for women who are coming to access the services, especially when they are coming to access various sexually connected health services, including family planning. So this is one of the approach we do use. And just to ensure, for example, currently in gender health, have partnered with the Pathfinder and CCBRT. CCBRT are bringing the technical expertise on disability, on how to work with people's disability, especially in provision of sexual productive health services. So we are doing advocacy to do more with the government curriculum and training manuals, so that they could have modules on people's disability and young people and social inclusion, so that at the end of the day, to make sure that when we are providing the services, we do it in a holistic approach. I understand, for example, for the sign language, we can't be able to provide a sign language specialist for every facilities, but we need to make sure that at least that is our wish. We want to see at the end of the day, at least in every district, we have one facilities which will be disability friendly service provision center. So whereby the other satellite hospitals will be aware that if we face this kind of challenge of this kind of client who has disability, we can ask him or her to go somewhere to get this kind of services. So that's one of the response I can make for your first question, which you asked. So for the second questions, why are we facing the challenge? Why young people are not accessing the services? And is it because of the infrastructure? Is it because of the logistics and availability? There are multiple of questions. So we can look at from this angle. So one of the reasons is the gender norms, the attitudes which we have in our communities. There are a lot of negative attitudes, misconceptions, myths about the use of family planning in our communities. And this is generated from different sources. From the family level, our religions, our tribes, the norms, the way we've raised, we've been taught negative about the use of family planning. and it has been making many young people to be reluctant to start using family planning. But at the same time, see, there are a lot of because of misinformation, people are taking it negative, so they are missing information, they are not aware, and they are full of do's and don'ts, which are given with people who are not familiar with this kind of services on contraceptions. So this kind of information, which is sweeping in the community, has created a fear, stigma to people to use those kind of services at the end of the day. You can imagine, for example, there is this kind of myth that if you use family planning, some of them are family planning, you will get cancer. If you use family planning, you know, when you are doing sex, you will not enjoy. For example, for women, there are some other myths. They will tell you if you're using family planning, you'll be giving water in your sexual party, and it can cause a lot of problem. So those kind of informations are creating a problem, people to fail to use it. And for example, many men, when I do ask them, are you comfortable to see your wife is using contraception? I tell you, hey, what? Using contraceptions? Why? Because this is a sign of infidelity. So in other language, it's taken people who are using a contraception, you know, they are like, you know, they are given all awkward names at the end of the day. So, but the other factors is the issue of accessibility, the cost of the service for transportation. For example, not all, we have a number, a spectrum of contraceptive methods. So, for example, in a certain health facility, you lack a skilled staff to provide that kind of service there. So that means we need to refer to another center where she can go, or he can go, this client to go and access the services, which will need which has cost implications. So, but at the same time, see, for example, the waiting time to receive the services, especially for men, have disappointed them many times. So you see, they see, no, I can't go and waste my time, you know. So they opt not to use those kinds of services. But
Thank you, Doctor.
Yes.
Doctor, we have very limited time, unfortunately. We would like to hear more, but our time is limited.
Thank you.
I think that was enough. Thank you very much. Now, we have one question here from Veronica John. Veronica, kindly keep your question short and direct it to the person that you want to answer the question. Veronica John, are you with us? Okay, Veronica is not with us, it seems. Now, I would like to take this moment to welcome Madam Desta Liza from...
Excuse me.
No. Oh, you're here?
Yeah.
Okay,
I would like
welcome.
to ask.
Please keep it short. Keep it short.
Sure. I'd like to ask the previous speaker, are the organizations for young people involved in helping to solve the COVID-19 crisis? And if they're involved, how are they involved?
Who are you directing your question to?
The previous speaker, I don't really remember the name.
Dr. Kasanta, that's you.
The one.
You're welcome again.
Yeah.
The questions from Veronica Jones says, are the organizations of young people, that means youth-led organizations, involved in helping to solve the COVID-19 crisis? And how, if they are involved? I think this question we can direct it to a representative from Plan International, because they've been working with young people mostly. Madam Esteria Kisoka, if you're with us, I do understand that you have a youth wing at Plan International. Madam Desta Liza, if you're with us, could you help us to respond to the question?
Can she please repeat the question again, or could you repeat on her behalf, please?
Okay, all right. Veronica, Can you repeat your question?
Sure. Are the organizations of young people involved in solving the problem of COVID-19? And if they're involved, how are they involved?
Thank you.
Okay. Veronica, firstly, I apologize that I wasn't part of the session when it started. I just got in between. But in responding to what Veronica is asking, Plan International, and I'm not sure about the interventions that are done by other organizations, but Plan International and other related stakeholders, what we have done is we have empowered young people. For example, we work very closely with Youth for Change. And through Youth for Change, they've used social media platforms to talk to young people. But the sessions that we have, the interventions that we do in the rural areas, we have used PA systems, but at the same time, we have used community radios to help young people take part in programs, and so they can speak to other young people in areas that we feel are quite relevant to their context. I hope that responds to your question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Desta. That was a response to the question of Veronica. So yeah, Plan International, they do work with young people through their wing of Youth for Change. And I do believe there are other youth wing organizations also that do deal with a response to COVID-19. Now, unfortunately, our time is due. And on that note, I would like to take this opportunity to welcome a representative from the Youth of United Nations Associations, Mr. Philemon Mweleka, who is the coordinator of the Tanzania International Model United Nations, to give us a closing remark on our session for today. Philemon, welcome. Philemon.
Yes, I'm in. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Madam Umeheri Yasin, the moderator of this session. We really appreciate for your time you talk to moderate this amazing and wonderful and brilliant session, visual session, TMUN 2020. But also I appreciate all the speakers, from the first speaker, from the guest, Madam Tausia Sani from UNFPA, Madam Esteria Kisoke from Plan International, but also the big boss, Madam Desta Liza, Head of Communication and Advocacy in Plan International. Thanks for your time, Madam. But also we appreciate for the Mr. Dr. Katanta from Engender Health. Thanks for your time. We learn a lot from you. We learn a lot concerning SRHR and GBV, but also the previous and the last speaker, Mr. Godwin Monge from CDF. Thanks so much. We appreciate for your time. But also our customers, our participants from different parts of the world. Thank you so much. We get participants from Ethiopia, from Nigeria, from Uganda, Kenya, and many from Maine, Tanzania, and Zanzibar also. We appreciate for your time. For who don't know why are we doing this, this is the Tanzania International Model United Nations visual session, whereby this is an annual international event which are organized by Youth of United Nations Association Tanzania annually. And this year we had this term when we plan to be held from March, 29th of March to 3rd of April in Arusha. But due to the rise of COVID-19, we postponed the event until the situations come to normal. So we expect our Tanzania International Model United Nations, as we can see, the road trip from our previous, maybe we can watch a little bit. Technical department, please, can you display that video from the beginning? Can you display, please, from the beginning? Oh. Yes, this was our previous trip, Tanzania International Model United Nations, whereby we invite youth from all over the world to come to Tanzania and discussing some trending issues, some sustainable development issues. But due to the rise of this COVID-19, we postponed the event. So we hope that when the situation back to normal, we'll have this International Model United Nations. But currently, we are organizing this visual session. This is the second version. We are trying to discuss this topic. These are topics that are supposed to be discussed in chairman, but due to the effect of COVID-19, we decide to digest so that to come up with a great resolution. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I appreciate for your time. We hope that from the next week we'll have another session concerning youth engagement in decent work and employment. Will be another lovely discussion with participants from different parts, speakers from different parts. Hope to see you once again. Thank you, Lord. Thanks for your time. Let me conclude by saying this: we cannot always build the future for our youth, but we can build our youth for the future. Thank you so much. See you once again. This is Philemon Mwaleka, coordinator of this Tanzania International Model United Nations 2020.
Thank you very much, Philemon Mwaleka. That is our coordinator for the Tanzania International Model United Nations 2020. Well, there is still a lot of questions going on in my chat box, but unfortunately our time is very limited. Now, I would like to request our speakers, if you can please leave your social media handles on our chat box so that our participants can continue asking you questions, or rather, if it will be okay with you to Thank you very much. Until further notice, you can contact us via our social media handles, that is Tanzania Munta. Hosting your meeting for today, my name is Umilheri Yassin. Kindly join us next time. Thank you. Have a good afternoon. Stay safe and protect yourself from COVID-19. Bye.